Welcome back to Focus. The difference between the United States and Canada when it comes to vaccines could not have been more stark this week. While Canadians line up for a shot, in Ohio, government officials are giving away millions of dollars in a lottery to encourage people to be vaccinated. And while Justin Trudeau talks about a one-dose summer, the U.S. Centre for Disease Control says fully vaccinated people in the United States can take off their masks and forget about physical distancing. To talk more about what we can expect as we get more vaccines into this country, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Raywat Deonandan, who's an epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa. Welcome to Focus. Let's begin with vaccine hesitancy. As we get more vaccines here, are we going to have the same thing as the United States is experiencing now?
I think a little bit, at least. So right now, demand outstrips supply, and we have no issues with hesitancy for the most part. But we'll get there eventually, especially if you want to reach herd immunity or something resembling herd immunity. We're going to have to interact and confront those people who are vaccine hesitant. And I say confront in a loving, tender way, of course. We have to meet them where they live. And I can distinguish between those who are anti-vaxxers, which is almost a religious movement, versus those who are skeptical and hesitant. And that's more understandable. And those people just need to be walked through the science to make them feel at ease with the vaccines.
Do we need to do things like they're doing in the United States? You know, you get free tickets to a ball game. You get a day off if you worked for some companies. They'll say, we'll give you a day off if you get vaccinated. Is that coming here?
I think the day off is probably going to come here to some extent because it makes sense medically to take a day off to get vaccinated because you might experience a side effect and you can't work anyway. That makes sense. But the other kinds of cash incentives don't sit very well with me. You're essentially buying someone's body for the day, but you're not winning their hearts and minds. So the problem has not been solved. The hesitancy problem, the science illiteracy problem has not been addressed. Just that one day thing has been addressed. And also, if we start giving away shots for money, then those who lined up willingly, altruistically, will feel cheated. And you never know, you may end up encouraging people to wait until there is a cash offer before doing the right thing to protect themselves.
That's a good point. Let's talk about that CDC announcement this week about, no more masks. And Dr. New here said, well, that's going to be the absolute last thing that we would ever give away or do away with, in Canada. Can you react to that?
There's a lot of things to unpack there. First of all, that's a two-dose situation. We're not near there yet at all. Second of all, whether or not you wear masks, that's gated by the prevalence of the disease in the community. Even vaccinated people have a very small chance of getting the disease and transmitting it. It's a tiny probability, but that probability is enacted when the disease is highly prevalent. In other words, if the disease is around us, it finds holes in our defenses. So we can't really doff the masks until we drive incidence low, and that's going to take weeks, if not months. Second of all, or third of all, I guess, if we're saying that fully vaccinated people can take off the mask and non-vaccinated people cannot, how do you check if you're in a crowded setting? You're relying on the honor system, and that's a recipe for chaos. So I don't like where that's going, that kind of broad recommendation without more controls being in place.
Can we talk about the metrics that we've heard in Ontario about, when things might be relaxed? Dr. Williams has said he wants to see cases well under 1,000 for a sustained amount of time, but is it not possible that we're going to see cases maybe even higher than that, but if we do have wide one dose and the one dose summer, that people are not going to have adverse effects so that we could have cases, but it doesn't show up in hospital?
It's a difficult question. The cases that we're seeing will be mostly amongst the unvaccinated people, and a certain percentage are still going to end up in hospital. That proportion who are vaccinated and are infected might not be as seriously infected. That's true. We're not entirely sure about that. But I'm more concerned about the unvaccinated. So the metrics we look at are, of course, the incidence rate. The test positivity rate has to be below a certain threshold to show that the disease isn't penetrating the community well. And that reproduction number, the average number of new cases produced by an old case, has to be below 1 for several days to convince us that the disease truly is petering out. But most importantly, we have to look at the hospital capacity. That's a lagging indicator. The ICU usage will be in high thrum for several weeks, if not months, after the lockdown is released. And that's going to be the metric by which businesses decide to open up again. For example, movie filmings in Toronto are dependent upon there being space in the hospital in case their stuntmen get injured. So that's the kind of thing that we have to make space for. And that means looking at a variety of indicators, not just that one.
As we look at the promise from the Prime Minister to talk about a potential for a one-dose summer, and then we've got the Premier saying, no, we're on track. We're going to try and get it to a two-dose summer. Take a look at the numbers coming in. What do you see?
I'd be surprised if we have a so-called two-dose summer. People have to wait 3 to 4 weeks for their second dose. The people getting their first doses now, that means not getting their second dose until September, possibly, unless we change the regimen somewhat. So we're looking at the so-called one-dose summer, whatever that means. But the summer is going to look good regardless. We're on trend to enter a ramp to normal starting in July, I think. And that means family gatherings, mostly outdoors, but starting to bubble indoors again, and with things opening up with vigor and permanently, probably in August and beyond. I expect schools to be open in September, and I expect every day to be better than the previous day. So the end is in sight, at least in this country.
Every day is going to be better than the previous day. Dr. Raywat Deonandan, thank you so much for joining us on Focus.
Thank you very much.